My name is Olivia, and at 38 I never expected to hear that doorbell again. Standing in my 15 million Atherton mansion, successful CEO of a tech empire I built from nothing, I froze. 15 years of family exclusion had left scars that success could not heal. Through the security camera, I saw them all waiting outside their faces, a mixture of awe and desperation. The family that once threw me away had come crawling back. Tell me where you are watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button before we dive into how I watched the color drain from their faces when they realized what was coming. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Chicago, my childhood should have been ordinary. My father, Walter, worked as an engineer at a respectable firm, bringing home a comfortable salary. My mother, Elaine, taught third grade at the local elementary school, beloved by her students and the community. From the outside, we appeared to be the perfect American family, living in a four-bedroom colonial with a white picket fence and a golden retriever named Buddy. But appearances can be deceiving. I was the youngest of 3 children. My brother Philip was 7 years older, the golden boy who excelled at everything he touched. Football, scholarships, straight A's, and a charming personality that made everyone gravitate toward him. My sister Sophia, 5 years my senior, was the beauty of the family with her perfect blonde curls and dazzling smile. She was a talented pianist and the captain of the debate team. And then there was me, the afterthought. From my earliest memories, I felt the difference in how I was treated. While my siblings received praise and attention for their achievements, mine were met with indifference or criticism. When I brought home straight, as my mother would merely nod and say, "That is what we expect." When Philip or Sophia brought home the same grades, there would be celebrations and special dinners. "Why can you not be more like your sister?" my mother would ask when I struggled with piano lessons. "Sophia was playing Mozart at your age." My father was no better. He attended every single one of Philip's football games, cheering from the stands and boasting to his colleagues about his son's athletic prowess. But when I qualified for the state science fair in 5th grade, he claimed he was too busy with work to attend. "Science is not really a spectator sport, Olivia," he said dismissively. "Besides, I have an important meeting that day." I later discovered he had rescheduled that important meeting to watch Philip's practice game. My 10th birthday was the clearest example of where I stood in the family hierarchy. Mom had promised a small party at our house with a few friends from school. I had been looking forward to it for weeks, even helping to make the invitations by hand. The morning of my birthday, I woke up early, excited for the celebration. "Olivia, there has been a change of plans," my mother announced over breakfast. "Philip has a championship game today, and we all need to be there to support him. We will have to reschedule your party." My heart sank as I realized what was happening. "But Mom, my friends are coming in 2 hours. We cannot cancel now." "Do not be selfish," my father interjected. "This is a big day for your brother. Family comes first. Family comes first." That phrase would haunt me for years to come, especially when I realized it never seemed to apply. When I was the one who needed support, the party was hastily canceled. I called each friend while fighting back tears, explaining that we would have to celebrate another time. Then I was dragged to Philip's football game, where I sat in the bleachers for 3 hours, forgotten as my parents cheered, and my sister socialized with her friends who had also come to watch. No one sang happy birthday that day. No one mentioned it at all. When we got home, there was no cake, no presents, just leftover pizza from the celebration for Philip's winning game. I ate alone in my room, tears silently falling onto my plate. Sophia was perhaps the cruelest. As a young teenager, when I was still in elementary school, she found ways to torment me psychologically. She would invite friends over, and then exclude me from their activities, locking me out of rooms or speaking in whispers that stopped the moment I entered. She borrowed my things without asking and returned them damaged if at all. When I complained to our parents, she would put on an innocent face. "Olivia is just being dramatic again," she would say, and they would believe her. Philip was not actively mean, just indifferent. As the big brother, he could have protected me from Sophia's bullying, but he chose to stay out of it. He lived in his own world of sports and popularity, too busy to notice the quiet suffering of his little sister. The only person who showed me genuine love was my grandmother, Eleanor, my mother's mother. Grandma Eleanor lived an hour away and visited once a month. During those visits, I felt seen for the first time. "You have a special spark, Olivia," she would tell me as we baked cookies together in the kitchen. "One day, the world will see what I see in you." She brought me books, because she noticed how much I loved to read. Unlike my parents who viewed my reading habit as antisocial, she attended my science fairs and school performances, sitting in the front row and beaming with pride. With Grandma Eleanor, I did not have to compete for attention or love. It was freely given. In school, I excelled academically. My teachers praised my intelligence and creativity. But at home, these accomplishments were minimized. "Book smarts will only get you so far in life," my father would say when I showed him my report card. "You need to develop social skills like your sister if you want to succeed." I tried to join clubs and activities to win their approval. I signed up for debate team like Sophia, but when I advanced to regionals, my parents were too busy to attend. I tried out for soccer, hoping my father might show the same enthusiasm he did for Philip's sports. But when I made the team, he merely commented that girls' sports were not as competitive as boys. By the time I reached high school, I had resigned myself to being invisible in my own family. I focused on my studies, knowing that education was my ticket to freedom. I worked part-time at the local library, saving every dollar for college. I applied for scholarships in secret, determined to forge my own path. When acceptance letters came from top universities, including Yale and Stanford, my parents seemed surprised, as if they had never considered that I might be capable of such achievements. Their reaction was tepid at best. "Those schools are very expensive," was my father's first comment, "and very far from home." I detected a note of relief in his voice at the thought of my leaving. It confirmed what I had always suspected. I was an obligation, not a beloved daughter. My heart broke a little more that day, but it also strengthened my resolve to build a life where I would be valued. Little did I know then that the worst betrayal was yet to come, and that the true nature of my place in the family would be revealed in the cruelest way possible. The pivotal moment that shattered any remaining illusions about my family came when I was 23. I had graduated from Stanford with honors, earning a computer science degree with a specialization in cybersecurity. I had secured a job at a tech startup in San Francisco. My first step toward independence. I was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could finally earn my family's respect through my achievements. Then came the call that Grandma Eleanor had passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack. I was devastated. The one person who had made me feel loved and valued was gone. I flew back to Chicago immediately for the funeral, my heart heavy with grief. The funeral was a somber affair with relatives I barely knew, offering condolences and sharing memories of my grandmother. Throughout the service, I sat alone in the front row while my parents, Philip and Sophia, huddled together, presenting a united front of family grief. No one thought to check if I was okay, despite knowing how close I had been to Grandma Eleanor. After the service, the family gathered at my parents' house. The reading of the will was scheduled for that afternoon. I sat quietly in the corner of the living room, leafing through a photo album of Grandma Eleanor, trying to process my loss. When the lawyer arrived, everyone gathered in the dining room. As he read through the will, most items and assets were distributed as expected. Grandma Eleanor's house went to my mother, her car to Philip, and her jewelry collection to Sophia. Then came the surprise. To my beloved granddaughter, Olivia, the lawyer read, I leave my grandmother's ruby ring and the sum of $5,000 and you were always special to me, and I know you will make me proud. The room fell silent. Then my mother let out a scoff. $5 and her old ring. That is it. I was stunned by her reaction. I had not expected anything, and was deeply touched by Grandma Eleanor's gesture. The ruby ring was a family heirloom that had belonged to my great-great-grandmother. It was not the monetary value that mattered to me, but the sentiment behind it. My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. This is outrageous, he sputtered. Eleanor always did favor Olivia for some reason. For some reason, I echoed, finding my voice. Maybe because she was the only one who ever showed me any kindness in this family. That was when everything exploded. Years of resentment and secrets came pouring out. You want to talk about kindness? My father shouted. We took you in when no one else would. We gave you a home and education opportunities most kids could only dream of. And this is the gratitude we get. Confusion washed over me. Took me in. What are you talking about? My mother shot my father a warning look, but it was too late. The damage was done. You are not even our daughter. He spat out. You were 2 years old when we adopted you after your mother died. Lisa was Elaine's college roommate. Had you out of wedlock, then got herself killed in a car accident. No father in the picture, no other family willing to take you. So we did out of the goodness of our hearts. The room spun around me, adopted. This could not be real. I looked at my mother, silently pleading for her to deny it. Instead, she sighed. We were going to tell you when you were older, but then it never seemed like the right time. 23 years, and it had never been the right time to tell me the truth about my own identity. All those years of feeling like I did not belong, like I was different somehow, suddenly made terrible sense. So I have been living a lie my entire life, I whispered. Does everyone know except me? Most of the family knows, Sophia said with a shrug. It was not exactly a secret. We just did not talk about it. Not a secret to anyone except me, the person whose life it was. I felt sick to my stomach. Why did Grandma Eleanor leave the ring to Olivia anyway? Philip asked the lawyer. It should stay with blood family. Blood family. Those words cut through me like a knife. Eleanor specifically mentioned that Olivia should have the ring because, in her words, true family is about love, not blood, the lawyer replied uncomfortably. That set my father off again. That old woman always did try to undermine our parenting, filling Olivia's head with nonsense, making her think she was special when we were trying to raise her to be realistic about her place in the world. My place? I asked, my voice rising. And what exactly is my place in this family? You should be grateful we took you in at all. Sophia interjected. Do you know how many orphans end up in the system? You had privileges most of them could only dream of. I looked at my sister, seeing her clearly for the first time. Privileges like being reminded constantly that I was not as good as you or Philip. Like having my birthdays forgotten and my achievements ignored. Those kinds of privileges. See, this is exactly why we never told you. My mother said. We knew you would react emotionally instead of rationally. Finding out my entire life has been a lie seems like a reasonable thing to be emotional about. I retorted. My father stood up, towering over the table. That is enough. I will not have you speaking to your mother that way, under my roof. If you cannot show some gratitude for everything we have done for you, then perhaps you should leave. I looked around the table at the faces of the people I had called family for 23 years. None of them came to my defense. Not even Philip, who had always been the least antagonistic toward me. In that moment I made my decision. Fine, I said quietly, gathering my purse. I will go. But first, I want to know one thing. Was anything real? Did you ever love me at all? Or was I just a charity case you regretted taking on? The silence that followed was all the answer I needed. I walked out of that house and never looked back. The exclusion from family life became official after that day. I was not invited to Thanksgiving that year or Christmas, or any family gathering that followed. I saw photos on social media of family reunions, holiday celebrations, and milestone events, all without me. Sophia would occasionally post pictures with captions, like complete family gathering or so blessed to have everyone I love in one place. Pointed reminders that I was not considered part of everyone. There were emails from my father, cold and formal, asking me not to contact them, and to respect the family's privacy. As if I were some stranger who might harass them, not someone who had lived as their daughter for over 2 decades. The ultimate pain came when I saw photos of my parents proudly attending Philip's wedding, and later the birth of Sophia's first child. Moments I should have been part of erased from the family narrative as thoroughly as if I had never existed. With the 5,000 from Grandma Ella Lanner and her ruby ring as my only inheritance, I cut all ties and vowed to build a life so successful that they would one day regret throwing me away. Little did I know just how dramatically that vow would be fulfilled. With just $5,000 to my name and a ruby ring, I vowed never to sell. I arrived in San Francisco determined to forge a new beginning. The money would not last long in one of America's most expensive cities, so I had to be strategic. I found a tiny apartment in a less desirable neighborhood, sharing with 2 other young women I found through a housing board at a local coffee shop. My portion of the rent consumed nearly half of my savings immediately. Alice was a nurse working night shifts, and Jordan was a graduate student in literature. Both were too busy with their own lives to pry into mine, which suited me perfectly. The apartment was cramped with just enough space for a twin bed and a small desk in my room. The kitchen was barely functional, and we shared one bathroom between the 3 of us. It was a far cry from the comfortable suburban home I had grown up in, but it was mine, and there was freedom in that. I secured an entry-level job as a technical support specialist at a small software company. The pay was minimal, barely covering my expenses, but it was a foot in the door of the tech industry. My days consisted of answering calls from frustrated users, troubleshooting basic problems, and documenting issues for the development team. It was mundane work that did not utilize my education or skills. But I approached it with determination. "You are overqualified for this position," my supervisor remarked during my 3-month review. "But I appreciate your work ethic. Keep it up and there will be opportunities for advancement." I did not want to wait for gradual advancement. Each night after my shift ended, I would return to my tiny room and spend hours teaching myself additional programming languages and cybersecurity protocols. I enrolled in free online courses, participated in coding challenges, and built small projects to enhance my portfolio. Sleep became a luxury I could rarely afford, but every hour of work was an investment in my future. To save money, I lived on ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches. I cut my own hair, shopped at thrift stores for clothes, and walked miles to avoid paying for public transportation when the weather permitted. Every dollar saved was a dollar that could keep me independent from the family that had rejected me. 6 months into my self-imposed exile, I attended a free tech workshop at the public library, The topic was emerging threats in cybersecurity, an area I had been focusing on in my studies. The presenter was Professor Diana Chen, a renowned expert in the field from Berkeley. I sat in the back row, absorbing every word of her presentation. Taking detailed notes on concepts I wanted to research further. When the formal presentation ended, and the crowd began to disperse, I gathered my courage and approached her with a specific question about encryption protocols she had mentioned. Professor Diana looked surprised by the technical nature of my question. "That is an insightful observation," she said. "Most people would not have caught that nuance. Are you working in the field?" I explained my background and current situation, carefully omitting the personal details about my family. Something about Professor Diana's kind eyes and attentive listening made me feel seen in a way I had not experienced since Grandma Eleanor. "You have a good mind for this work," she said after our conversation. "I am hosting a hackathon next month at Berkeley. You should come." That hackathon changed the trajectory of my career. Working with a team of strangers, I helped identify a significant vulnerability in a popular financial application. Our solution won third place, and more importantly caught the attention of several industry professionals. Professor Diana became my unofficial mentor, inviting me to additional events and recommending resources to further my education. "You have a unique perspective on security," she told me after I shared some of my ideas. "You see vulnerabilities others miss because you think differently." Under her guidance, I began developing a concept for a new approach to data protection, one that focused on behavioral patterns rather than traditional password systems. The idea had potential, but turning it into a viable product would require resources I did not have. "You should consider seeking investors." Professor Diana suggested this concept could revolutionize personal data security. The world of venture capital and startup funding was completely foreign to me. I spent weeks researching, preparing a business plan, and practicing my pitch. Professor Diana introduced me to a few of her contacts, but the responses were lukewarm at best. "The concept is interesting, but you have no track record. Come back when you have a working prototype." We typically invest in founders with more experience. Rejection after rejection piled up. 27 investors turned me down, each dismissal echoing the rejections I had faced from my family. But unlike then, I refused to accept that I was not good enough. To sustain myself financially while pursuing my vision, I took a second job, bartending at a popular tech hangout spot. The irony was not lost on me that I was serving drinks to successful entrepreneurs whose ranks I was desperate to join. The late-night shifts were exhausting after full days at my tech support job. But they provided additional income and unexpectedly networking opportunities. One night, a customer named Travis left a generous tip after we had a brief conversation about the future of digital privacy. He returned the following week and asked more questions about my background and ideas. After several such conversations, he revealed that he was an angel investor specializing in cybersecurity startups. "I have been testing you," he admitted, "seeing if you really know your stuff or if you are just another person with big talk and no substance. You are the real deal. Let me see your business plan." 2 weeks later, I received an investment of a 200,000 to develop a prototype of my security system. It was a fraction of what established startups typically received, but it was enough to quit my tech support job and focus on building my product. I kept the bartending gig on weekends, both for extra cash and to stay grounded. The development process was grueling. I rented a small office space and worked 16 to 18-hour days, 7 days a week. There were technical challenges I had not anticipated requiring me to learn new skills on the fly. There were moments of doubt when the code would not work or when a security protocol failed testing. During those dark moments, I would hold Grandma Eleanor's ruby ring and remember her words. You have a special spark, Olivia. The loneliness was perhaps the most difficult aspect. While I had acquaintances like Professor Diana and my roommates, I had no close friends, no one to celebrate small victories with, or to provide comfort during setbacks. I had built walls around myself, after the betrayal by my family, afraid to let anyone close enough to hurt me again. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, exhausted and overwhelmed. Nights when I questioned if I was on a fool's errand, trying to prove my worth to people who had made it clear they did not care. But each morning I would get up and return to my code, driven by a determination that grew stronger with each obstacle overcome. After 8 months of development, I had a working prototype. It was rough around the edges, but demonstrated the core functionality of my security concept. Travis arranged a demonstration for a group of more established investors, and this time they were impressed. This approach to behavioral authentication is genuinely innovative. One of them commented, with the right refinement, this could be a game maker for consumer security. That demonstration secured an additional round of funding, enough to hire 3 employees, and move to a proper office space. Secure Now was officially born, and with it the first step toward building the empire that would one day make my family regret their decision to cast me aside. The launch of Secure Now's first commercial product exceeded even my most optimistic projections. Our behavioral authentication system caught the attention of several major tech publications, with TechCrunch calling it a revolutionary approach to personal data security in an increasingly vulnerable digital landscape. Within 6 months, we had licensing agreements with 3 Fortune 500 companies who wanted to integrate our technology into their products. As the company grew, so did my confidence. I expanded from our small office to a full floor in a downtown San Francisco building. My team of 3 grew to 15, then 30, then over 100 employees within 2 years. Each hire was carefully selected not just for their technical skills, but for their passion and integrity. I was building more than a company. I was creating the family I had never had. You have created something special here, Diana remarked during a visit to our new offices. She had transitioned from mentor to friend, one of the few people who knew the truth about my past. And I do not just mean the technology. She was right. The culture at Secure Now was built on respect, collaboration, and recognition of achievements large and small. Every milestone was celebrated, every birthday acknowledged. I made sure no one ever felt invisible or unappreciated the way I had for so many years. Our second product, a secure communication platform that used our proprietary authentication system, attracted attention from government agencies and international corporations concerned about industrial espionage. The contracts that followed pushed Secure Now's valuation past $100 million, just 3 years after our founding. Financial success brought changes to my personal life as well. I moved from my shared apartment to a luxury condo overlooking the bay. I replaced my thrift store wardrobe with designer clothes, not out of vanity, but because I learned that in the business world, appearance matters. When seeking to be taken seriously, I traded my 10-year-old laptop for cutting-edge technology and my bus pass for a Tesla. Yet, despite these material improvements, there remained an emptiness I could not fill. Each night, I would return to my beautiful but silent condo with its panoramic views and expensive furnishings and feel utterly alone. Success was a cold companion. On the 5th anniversary of Secure Now's founding, we secured our biggest deal yet, a $200 million contract to overhaul the security infrastructure for a consortium of international banks. The celebration at the office was jubilant, with champagne flowing and employees cheering as I announced bonuses for everyone. But when the party ended and everyone went home to their families, I returned alone to my condo and opened a bottle of wine. As I sipped my drink on the balcony, I found myself scrolling through social media, a habit I had mostly broken, but occasionally indulged in moments of weakness. There was a new post from Sophia, a family reunion at our parents' lake house. Annual Sullivan family tradition. So blessed to have everyone together. The caption read, "Everyone except me, of course." I closed the app and made a decision. If I could not have the family I was born into, I would create a life so full and meaningful that their absence would no longer matter. The next day, I began looking for a permanent home, somewhere that could become my sanctuary. After weeks of searching, I found a sprawling estate in Atherton, the most exclusive neighborhood in the Silicon Valley area. The 15 million property featured a main house with 7 bedrooms, a guest house, a pool, and extensive gardens on 3 acres of land. "Are you sure about this purchase?" my financial advisor asked. "It is a significant investment for a single person." "I am sure," I replied. "This is not just a house, it is a statement." I spent the next 6 months renovating the property to my exact specifications. The formal dining room was converted into a state-of-the-art home office. One wing of the house became a library filled with thousands of books, fulfilling my childhood dream of having my own personal library, like the one in Beauty and the Beast, my favorite fairy tale growing up. Each room was carefully designed to reflect different aspects of my personality and interests. The color schemes were warm and inviting. The furniture elegant but comfortable. Unlike the stark minimalism of my San Francisco condo, this house was meant to be lived in, to create memories. In the crown jewel of the property was the garden. I hired a renowned landscape architect to create an English garden with winding paths, hidden benches, and year-round blooms. It was the kind of garden Grandma Eleanor would have loved, and I placed a small memorial bench with her name in a quiet corner, surrounded by her favorite flowers. As Secure Now continued to expand, now with over 500 employees and offices in 5 countries, I made a conscious effort to balance my professional success with personal growth. I joined boards of charitable organizations, focusing particularly on those that supported foster children and orphans. I established a scholarship fund for computer science students from disadvantaged backgrounds. I began mentoring young women entering the tech field, determined to help them avoid some of the obstacles I had faced. Through these activities, I slowly built a circle of friends who knew nothing about my past and accepted me for who I was now. There was Travis, my first investor, who had become a trusted advisor and weekend sailing companion. Diana, of course, remained a constant presence now, bringing her husband and children to regular dinners at my home. Jordan, my former roommate, had finished her PhD and now taught literature at Stanford. We met monthly for coffee and book discussions. There was also my executive team, Lila, my brilliant chief technology officer, Marcus, the chief financial officer, whose careful stewardship had helped grow our company's value, and Derek, our chief operating officer, whose organizational skills kept everything running smoothly. They had started as employees, but had become something more over the years, people I trusted and respected. This carefully constructed family of choice helped fill some of the emptiness, but there were still moments when the past would creep in. Late at night, I would sometimes find myself looking through an old photo album I had kept from my childhood. One of the few possessions I had taken when I left my parents' house. The smiling faces in those photos seemed to belong to strangers. Now people I once thought loved me, but had proven otherwise. 10 years after founding Secure Now, I took the company public. The IPO was wildly successful, making me a billionaire overnight, at least on paper. My face appeared on the cover of business magazines with headlines like, Security Queen. How Olivia Sullivan Built a Tech Empire from Nothing. If my biological family saw these articles, they never reached out. Their silence was both a relief and a lingering wound. On the 15th anniversary of the day I had been cast out of my family, I hosted a charity gala at my Atherton estate. The event raised over $10 million for foster care organizations, a cause that had become deeply personal to me. As I stood addressing the crowd of Silicon Valley elites, politicians, and celebrities who had paid thousands of dollars for the privilege of attending, I could not help but reflect on the journey that had brought me here. From a confused and hurt young woman with just $5 in thousand and a ruby ring to my name, I had transformed into one of the most powerful women in tech. The mansion around me, the respect of my peers, the impact of my charitable work, all served as testimony to what I had achieved, despite or perhaps because of being discarded by those who should have loved me most. Yet, for all my success, there remained a small wounded part of me that still wondered why I had never been enough for them. That part was about to get an unexpected answer when the very next day my security system alerted me to visitors at my gate. It was a quiet Sunday morning, the kind I cherished after busy weeks of meetings and business travel. I was enjoying a cup of coffee on my terrace, still in my silk pajamas, watching hummingbirds flit around the feeders I had installed throughout the garden. The tranquility was shattered by the chime of my security system, indicating visitors at the front gate. Annoyed at the unexpected interruption, I picked up my tablet to check the security camera. What I saw made my coffee cup slip from my fingers and shatter on the stone floor. There they were, standing at my gate like ghosts from a past life. My father, Walter, now in his 70s, his once dark hair completely gray, his tall frame slightly stooped with age. My mother, Elaine, beside him, her face more lined than I remembered, but still wearing the same pearl necklace she had worn for as long as I could recall. Philip stood slightly behind them, heavier, now his former athletic build softened by middle age. And Sophia, still immaculately dressed and groomed, her blonde hair now expertly highlighted to hide any graying, with two children clutching her hands. A boy who looked about 10 and a girl of perhaps 8. 15 years. 15 years of silence. Of exclusion, of pretending I did not exist. And now they were here, standing at the entrance to the life I had built without them. My first instinct was to ignore them, to let them wait at the gate until they gave up and left. But curiosity won out. What could possibly have brought them here after all this time? What could they want from me now? With trembling hands, I pressed the intercom button. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice carefully neutral. "Olivia, it is Mom and Dad." My mother's voice crackled through the speaker. "And Philip and Sophia. We were hoping we could talk to you." Talk to me after 15 years of silence. I should have said no. I should have told them to leave and never come back. But some deeply buried part of me, that little girl who had always longed for her family's approval, made me press the button to open the gate. I rushed to my bedroom to change, pulling on jeans and a simple blouse, running a brush through my hair. I did not want to look like I had made an effort for them, but neither did I want to appear as though their arrival had caught me off guard. By the time the doorbell rang, I had composed myself, at least outwardly. I opened the front door with what I hoped was an expression of mild interest, rather than the emotional turmoil raging inside me. The 5 of them stood on my doorstep, looking up at the grand facade of my home with poorly concealed awe. "Olivia," my mother said, stepping forward with arms outstretched as if to embrace me. "You look wonderful." I stepped back slightly, avoiding the hug. "Thank you," I replied coolly. "This is unexpected. We have been trying to find the right time to reach out." My father said, his voice softer than I remembered. When we saw the article about your charity gala in the Wall Street Journal, we thought, well, we thought it might be time to reconnect. The Wall Street Journal. Of course, they had not come because they missed me or regretted their actions. They had come because they had seen evidence of my wealth and success in a national publication. Please come in, I said, my hospitality on autopilot. Even as my mind processed this revelation, I led them through the grand foyer with its marble floors and sweeping staircase into the main living room where floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the gardens and pool. This is quite a home, Philip said, whistling softly as he took in the custom furnishings and original artwork on the walls. Thank you, I replied, simply gesturing for them to sit on the Italian leather sofas. Can I offer you something to drink? Coffee, water. Coffee would be lovely, my mother said, perching on the edge of the sofa, as if afraid to fully commit to sitting in my home. I used the excuse of preparing coffee to escape to the kitchen for a moment, leaning against the counter and taking deep breaths to steady myself. I had imagined this scenario countless times over the years, fantasized about what I would say if they ever showed up in my life again. But now that it was happening, I felt unprepared, vulnerable in a way I had not felt in years. When I returned with a tray of coffee in my finest porcelain, set a petty display of wealth I could not resist, the children were exploring the room while the adults sat in awkward silence. These are my children, Sophia said as I sat down the tray. Jack and Emma. I nodded to the children who regarded me with curious eyes. Hello, I said, unsure how to interact with these niece and nephew I had never met. Had Sophia told them about me? Did they know they had an aunt who had been erased from family photos and conversations? They are beautiful, I said, because it seemed like the expected response. We have missed you, Olivia, my mother said, tears welling in her eyes. The performance was almost convincing. All these years we have thought about you. Have you? I asked, my voice steady, despite the anger bubbling just beneath the surface. That is interesting because I have not received so much as a birthday card or a Christmas greeting in 15 years. We did not know how to reach out, my father said. After the way things ended, we did not know if you would want to hear from us. You could have tried, I pointed out. My email address has not changed. My company is not exactly difficult to find. We have been following your career, Philip interjected. Reading about your success. We are all very proud. Proud. I repeated the word, tasting bitter on my tongue. Now you are proud. Not when I graduated with honors. Not when I started my company. Not when I needed support and encouragement. Only now when I have a mansion and a billion-dollar company. Now you are proud. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. The children sensed the tension and moved closer to their mother, who put protective arms around them. Olivia? My father said, after a moment, clearing his throat. We did not just come to reconnect, though that is certainly our hope. We also came because, well, we could use your help. And there it was. The real reason for their sudden appearance in my life. What kind of help? I asked, already knowing the answer. Financial help, my father admitted, having the grace to look embarrassed. My company went bankrupt last year. The economic downturn hit us hard, and at my age, finding new employment has been challenging. I lost my job in the tech sector 6 months ago, Philip added. Been freelancing, but it is not stable, and I am going through a divorce. Sophia said, her voice dropping, to ensure her children did not hear. Harold left me for his secretary. Classic story. The settlement is still being negotiated, and my lawyer bills are astronomical. I looked at each of them in turn. These people who had cast me out when I had nothing, and had returned now that I had everything. The audacity was breathtaking. We were thinking, my father continued. apparently mistaking my silence for consideration. That perhaps you could help us restart the family business. A loan of about 2 million would allow us to re-establish ourselves and create something the whole family could be part of. The whole family, I repeated. Yes, my mother said eagerly. You could be part of it too. Of course, though I imagine you are too busy with your own company, but you could be a silent partner, and it would help secure your niece and nephew's future. She gestured to the children, a calculated move, to pull at heartstrings. I was not sure I still possessed. We would pay you back, of course, my father added, with interest, and perhaps you could consider allocating some shares in your company to the family trust. Keep it all in the family, so to speak. The nausea I felt was overwhelming. The sheer nerve of them to walk into my home, after 15 years of silence, and ask not just for money, but for a piece of the company I had built entirely, without their help or support. To speak of family as if it were a concept that still included me when it suited their financial needs. I see, was all I said, my mind already formulating a response they would never forget. I rose from my seat with deliberate calm, smoothing the fabric of my jeans as I gathered my thoughts. The room felt charged with tension. My family watching me with expressions ranging from hope to thinly veiled calculation. Please make yourselves comfortable, I said with practiced hospitality. The coffee is imported from a small cooperative in Colombia. I visited the farms myself last year. This casual mention of international travel, of the kind of lifestyle where one could personally visit coffee producers halfway around the world, was not lost on them. My father's eyes narrowed slightly, recalculating the extent of my wealth. Sophia glanced around the room with renewed interest, as if mentally appraising the value of each piece of furniture and artwork. I excused myself, briefly, and returned with a leather-bound album and my laptop. Sitting both on the coffee table, I resumed my seat across from them, legs crossed, posture relaxed, but confident, the way I sat in board meetings when I knew I held all the cards. Before we discuss any financial arrangements, I said, my voice even, I think we should catch up on the past 15 years. After all, we are family, right? I emphasized the word family just enough to make it clear. I recognized the irony. My mother nodded eagerly. Yes, of course. We have so much to catch up on. Let us start with family gatherings. I suggested, opening the album. I have been keeping track of them, you know. Their confused expressions turned to discomfort as I revealed the first page, a printed screenshot of a Facebook post from 15 years ago, shortly after our falling out. It showed a Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house. The caption reading, "Grateful for family today and always. This was 3 months after you told me never to contact you again." I said conversationally, as if discussing the weather. I noticed all of you were there. Plus Uncle Robert and Aunt Linda and their children. Cousin Jessica even flew in from Denver. I turned the page. Christmas same year. Nothing better than having the whole family together for the holidays. That is a lovely tree, Mom. Did you use the ornaments I made in elementary school? Or did those get thrown out along with my baby pictures? Page after page, I showed them evidence of the life they had lived without me. Birthday celebrations, graduations, weddings, baby showers for Sophia's children, anniversary parties for my parents, all documented on social media with captions about complete family gatherings and everyone we love in one place. Why do you have all these? Sophia asked, her voice strained. Know your enemy, I replied with a small smile. A basic principle of security. You taught me that, Dad. Probably the most valuable lesson you ever gave me. Always know who you are dealing with. I closed the album and opened my laptop. Now, let us move on to more recent history. I turned the screen toward them, showing an email from my father dated 12 years ago. I read it aloud, my voice steady. Olivia, I must insist that you cease any attempts to contact family members. Your mother was very upset by your Christmas card. We have moved on with our lives, and expect you to respect our privacy. Walter Sullivan. I looked up at my father. That was in response to the only Christmas card I ever sent after leaving. A simple card wishing you happy holidays. No requests for reconciliation, no accusations, just a card. That was your response. He had the decency to look ashamed, staring down at his hands. And this, I continued scrolling to another email, is from Sophia to her friend Jenna, which she accidentally copied me on 3 years ago. Ugh, saw another article about my sister the tech genius. Mom was going on about it all day. As if being rich makes up for being such a freak growing up. Some people just have all the luck despite being totally socially inept. Charming Sophia. My sister's face flushed red. I did not mean. Oh, I think you did, I interrupted. But it is fine. Your opinion of me stopped mattering a long time ago. I closed the laptop and leaned forward, looking each of them in the eye in turn. For 15 years, you have lived your lives as if I did not exist. You celebrated holidays, shared milestones, supported each other through hardships. You were a family in every sense of the word, just without me, and that was your choice. I stood and walked to the window, looking out at the garden I had created at the bench, dedicated to Grandma Eleanor, the only family member who had ever truly loved me. Now you come here to the home I built, to the life I created entirely without your help, and you talk about family as if it is something that can be picked up and put down whenever it becomes convenient or profitable. I turned back to face them. Let me be very clear. I do not need a family that only wants me when I have something to offer them. I do not need parents who only acknowledge me when I am successful. I do not need siblings who mock me behind my back, but come asking for handouts. The color had drained from my father's face. My mother was crying silently, whether from genuine remorse or frustration at the failure of their plan. I could not tell. Philip stared at the floor, and Sophia sat rigid with anger or embarrassment, or both. That said, I continued, my voice softening slightly as I looked at the children, who appeared confused and uncomfortable. I do not believe in punishing children for the sins of their parents. I returned to my seat and addressed my niece and nephew directly. Jackson, Emma, I am your Aunt Olivia. We have never met before today, but that is not your fault. I would like to get to know you both, if you are interested. The children looked to their mother for guidance, uncertain how to respond to this stranger claiming to be their aunt. And to that end, I said, returning my gaze to the adults, I will not be giving you $2 million to restart a family business that failed once already. I will not be signing over shares of my company to a family trust. What I will do is establish education funds for Jackson and Emma to ensure they have the opportunity to attend any college they choose when the time comes. Sophia's expression was a complex mixture of relief, disappointment, and wounded pride. We do not need your charity, she began. It is not charity, I cut her off. It is an investment in the only innocent parties in this room. The funds will be managed by my financial team and will only be accessible for educational expenses. You will have no access to the money. I stood, signaling that the meeting was coming to an end. That is my offer. Take it or leave it. My father stood as well, his face flushed with a familiar anger. After everything we did for you. What exactly did you do for me? I asked quietly. Remind me. We gave you a home when no one else would. They sputtered. We fed and clothed you, sent you to good schools. You did the legal minimum required of parents, I corrected him. And you made sure I knew every day that it was an obligation, not a choice made from love. The moment I was old enough to be cast out, you did exactly that. My mother rose, tears still streaming down her face. Olivia, please. We made mistakes. We are sorry. Are you sorry for what you did or sorry that I became successful without you? I asked. Because those are very different things. She had no answer to that. I think it is time for you to go, I said gently but firmly. My assistant will contact you regarding the education funds for the children if you choose to accept them. Otherwise, I wish you all well in your future endeavors. I walked them to the door, maintaining my composure through sheer force of will. As they stepped outside, Sophia turned back, her expression softer than I had seen it in decades. For what it is worth, she said quietly, I am proud of what you have accomplished. I really am. Too little, too late. But I nodded acknowledgement of her words. Take care of your children, Sophia, I replied. They deserve better than what we had. I closed the door on my past and leaned against it, finally allowing the tears to come. They were not tears of sadness or regret, but of release. In facing my family, in refusing to be manipulated by them again, I had finally freed myself from the last chains of their approval. I pulled out my phone and dialed the one person I knew would understand. Diana, it is Olivia. Can you come over? My family just left and I need a friend right now. As I waited for Diana to arrive, I looked around at the beautiful home I had created, at the life I had built from nothing but determination, and the belief that I deserved better. For the first time, I truly believed that Grandma Eleanor would be proud of the woman I had become, not just for my success, but for finding the strength to stand up for myself. The sound of tires on the driveway announced Diana's arrival, just 30 minutes after my call. One of the things I valued most about our friendship was her unfailing reliability. When I needed her, she was there, no questions asked. She found me in the garden, sitting on Grandma Eleanor's bench, the ruby ring gleaming on my finger as I twisted it absently, a habit I had developed over the years when deep in thought. Hey, she said softly, sitting beside me. Rough day. I smiled weakly. You could say that. I recounted the entire encounter from the moment I saw them on the security camera to their final departure. Diana listened without interruption, her face reflecting my own emotions as the story unfolded. 200 million in shares in your company, she repeated when I finished. The audacity is almost impressive. That startled a laugh out of me. Right after 15 years of radio silence, they show up expecting a handout, as if all the years of exclusion and cruelty never happened. But you stood your ground, Diana said, squeezing my hand. You offered help to the children without letting the adults manipulate you. That took courage. We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the garden. The emotional upheaval of the day had left me drained, but also strangely at peace. You know what the strangest part is? I said finally. For years, I fantasized about a moment like this, about them seeing my success and regretting how they treated me. But now that it has happened, it feels empty somehow. Their regret, if they even feel, it does not change anything. Diana nodded thoughtfully. Because you have realized that their approval was never the prize you thought it was. Her words resonated with a truth I had been slowly discovering over the years. Exactly. I spent so much of my life trying to earn love that should have been freely given. Building this company, this fortune part of me, was still that little girl trying to prove I was worthy of being loved. And now Diana prompted. Now, I know that was never the problem. Their inability to love me was their failure, not mine. No amount of success on my part could ever fix what was broken in them. In the days that followed, I experienced a range of emotions from residual anger to unexpected grief for the family relationships I had never truly had. But beneath it all was a growing sense of liberation. The last lingering hope that they might someday acknowledge their wrongdoing, that we might somehow become a real family. had been laid to rest. That fantasy had been holding me back in ways I had not fully recognized. A week after their visit, I made a decision that would change the course of not just my life, but potentially many others. I established the Eleanor Grace Foundation, named for my grandmother, dedicated to supporting children in the foster care system, particularly those who had been adopted and then rejected or mistreated by their adoptive families. The foundation would provide not just financial assistance for education and basic needs, but also psychological support, mentorship programs, and legal advocacy. I committed $50 million as initial funding and pledged to personally oversee its operations alongside my duties at Secure Now. During the planning stages, I reconnected with Jordan, my former roommate, who now taught literature at Stanford. Over coffee, I shared my vision for the foundation and my personal connection to its mission. "I never knew," she said, visibly moved by my story. "All those years we lived together, I had no idea what you had been through." "I was good at hiding it," I admitted. "I did not want anyone's pity." "It is not pity to let people care about you, Olivia," she said gently. "It is human connection, something I think you have been denying yourself for too long." Her words stayed with me, prompting a period of deep reflection. I had built walls to protect myself from further rejection. But those same walls had kept out the genuine connections I craved. My success, my wealth, even my charitable work, none of it could substitute for authentic human relationships. True to my word, I established the education funds for Jackson and Emma. Sophia accepted them with a stiff email of thanks. It was not reconciliation, but it was a small bridge to the next generation, a chance to break the cycle of emotional neglect that had characterized my own childhood. 3 months after my family's visit, I joined a support group for adults who had experienced family estrangement. Sitting in a circle with others who had similar stories, I found a level of understanding I had not experienced before. These were people who knew, firsthand, the particular pain of being rejected by those who should have loved them unconditionally. "Family is not always blood," said one woman during a particularly powerful session. "Family is who loves you when you need it most." This simple statement crystallized something I had been learning gradually over the years. Looking around at the lives I had touched and those who had touched mine, I realized I had built a family of choice, one far more nurturing than the one I had been born into. There was Diana, who had believed in me when I was just a nervous young woman at a tech workshop. Travis, who had taken a chance on my ideas when 27 other investors had said no. My executive team at Secure Now, who had stood by me through the company's growth and challenges. The children benefiting from my foundation's programs, whose letters and artwork now decorated a wall in my home office. 6 months after the confrontation with my biological family, I decided to host a gathering at my Atherton estate. Not a formal charity gala or business function, but a simple celebration of connection. I invited everyone who had become important to me over the years. From Diana and her family to my first roommates in San Francisco, from Travis and his wife to members of my support group, the house and gardens were filled with laughter and conversation with people who knew my story and accepted me as I was, flaws and all. As I looked around at these diverse individuals who had chosen to be part of my life, I felt a sense of belonging I had searched for my entire life. Late in the evening, I found a quiet moment alone on Grandma Eleanor's bench. The ruby ring caught the light from the garden lanterns, sparkling with the same warmth I remembered in her eyes. I could almost hear her voice. "True family is about love, not blood." She had been right all along. Blood ties may be the beginning of family, but they are not its definition. Family is built through love, respect, and choices made day after day to show up for one another. It cannot be measured by DNA or legal documents, but by the depth of connection and the safety found in each other's presence. My journey from rejected child to successful businesswoman had been driven partly by a desire to prove my worth to those who had discarded me. But the true transformation came when I realized that my worth had never been in question, only their ability to see it. The family that had once defined me by my absence had lost their power over my happiness. In their place was a community of chosen, family people who had earned their place in my life through their actions, not their blood relation. As I sat in my garden, surrounded by the life I had built, and the people who had helped me build it, I felt at peace in a way I never had before. The wounds of the past would always be part of my story, but they no longer defined my future. The ruby ring on my finger was no longer just a reminder of the one person from my biological family who had truly loved me. It had become a symbol of the truth I had learned through pain and triumph, that we all have the power to create our own definitions of family, to build connections based on genuine love rather than obligation. For anyone out there who has felt the sting of family rejection, who has wondered if something is inherently wrong with them, because the people who should love them the most have turned away, I want you to know this. Your worth is not determined by those who failed to see it. You deserve love. You deserve belonging. And you have the power to create a family of the heart that will cherish you exactly as you are. Have you ever had to create your own family when your biological one let you down? What helped you heal from family rejection? Share your stories in the comments below. And do not forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if it resonated with you. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. And remember that sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones we choose for ourselves.